Hey guys, today I'm going to be giving you some tips for designing your own original animation characters, and these tips have helped me and should hopefully help you as well. So to start things off, we're going to talk a bit about shapes. Distinctive shapes will help to make your character stand out, and they will help to define your character. This is a method often used in many big studios such as Pixar, Sony Pictures Animation, Illumination Entertainment, etc. For example, if your character is quite playful and kind and harmless, maybe they should have more rounded shapes worked into their design, or perhaps their overall design should be in the shape of a circle or a sphere. Triangular shapes are often dangerous and dynamic, or at least that's how they're shown, as are arrows. Squares are often depicted as being strong or maybe a bit awkward, so that those are some other examples. So once you've decided on a shape, perhaps you should practice applying the shape to lines of action. I find that lines of action are also very descriptive of a character. So for example, if your character is a very disciplined character, then maybe his line of action would be quite straight and up to the sky. Or perhaps if they're a demotivated character, they will be kind of slumped over and in a hunch position almost. So now let's move on to symmetry. I found that symmetry can be quite good at describing a character. So for example, a very symmetrical character could show conformity or purity or balance and strength, while an asymmetrical character could feel more rebellious or corrupt or tainted. Symmetrical designs have been used a lot in animation production because they're easier to manage. That's something you've got to consider as well. If you're making these designs for animation, it can be easier to have a symmetrical design because then you can flip it and it will still have the same effect, so it reduces the amount you need to draw. For the complexity that you should choose for an animated character, you have to remember that the more detail you put into your character design, the more time it will take for you to animate that character. So you might regret giving a character a lot of detail, such as elaborate jewelry or tattoos, although there are a few ways around that where you can texture the tattoos onto a character and save yourself time drawing them out. I've often heard of character designers in the concept art industry talk about the ratios of detail that they use. So a lot of the time they'll talk about having 30% of the design being quite intense with detail and 70% being areas of rest, and this actually creates a very appealing design. When working on your character designs, you need to make sure that your character works in synchrony with the other characters in your animation. So if a character is going to have screen time with your other character, do the designs complement each other? So the other thing is you don't want them to look too similar to one another because you could cause a lot of confusion for your audience. But the main thing is you want them to complement each other in terms of their style and their colours. When considering what characters to design for what animation, it's worth considering your character's ability to express itself. Did you know that Finding Nemo was not greenlit for many years because the producers were not confident that the characters would be able to communicate human emotions convincingly? So that was one thing that really stops them from making the film. So make sure that your character can convincingly communicate a range of human emotions. This isn't actually too hard to do. In fact, there are a lot of characters that are very successful, such as Wall-E, which didn't look very human, but just the fact that the eyes were able to tilt in that way made it able to convey a lot of human emotions, quite complex emotions and deep emotions, just with that design. So you've got to be smart about that and give your character design room to express itself. So to experiment with this, you would just make an expression sheet with lots of different expressions that your character could show in your film. That's a good way to see if your character is able to express itself properly. So here are some other activities that I invite you to do to create a solid character design. The The first one, and this is for people who are still in the process of developing their story, is to write down who your character is, all of the different character traits they would have, and their usual emotional state. You don't have to go too in detail for this. It's mainly just the parts of your character which will be relevant to your story. This will give you a good foundation of ideas to show what your character is on the inside, but how they reflect that on the outside. So now you need to kind of brainstorm what kind of different items you can give the character, different clothing, different facial features and body features, and this is where it gets really fun. So my advice is to just fill a few blank pages with designs and sketches. Just doodle away and spend a good hour or 2 hours. You could do it with your friends, you could do it by yourself, but doodle a lot, because your characters will likely emerge from your doodles. This is how a lot of very famous characters came into existence. It all started on a page when the director was doodling. The next thing I would suggest for you to do is to create a character turnaround. The aim of a character turnaround is to capture as many angles as necessary to get a good understanding of the construction of your character, and it's also, if you're working in a group, there to explain to the animators who are going to work on your animation what the design of your character is. The goal of this is to imagine your character in 3D space. That way you're able to draw your character from a range of angles, which is going to give you a lot of freedom in the camera angles you choose for your animation. After that, as I mentioned before, I would suggest expression sheets. So here it's important to capture a range of emotions, mainly just in the face, because the face is the most expressive and uniquely individual part of the body. So expression sheets here are really important, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of character animation, and if you're going to be doing lip syncing and stuff like that. They'll come in really useful later. The next activity recommended would be to create a relative height chart. So this is where you put your characters next to each other on the same page, and by doing this it allows you to see the relative scales of your characters, how big they are compared to one another. I would also recommend that you include a reference of scale in there as well, so maybe like a meter measurement or something, and that way you're aware of their actual height in comparison to other things that are going to be in their surroundings, such as cars and doorways and windows, for when you're doing your storyboarding or your animation. So it might be important later on to include that in there. A height chart with all of your characters also allows you to see if they're consistent with each other in other ways too, such as their color palette and their dress sense. So going back to the point earlier, do they look like they belong in the same world as one another? I think that can be quite important when you're trying to develop a concept for an animation. So those are all of the different procedures I would recommend for creating your own character to animate later on. The other thing I would suggest you do as an activity is just to study some great character designs, and do this as you are trying to find the right designs for your character. So Pinterest is a really good source for this, also ArtStation and Behance, but especially Pinterest, because I don't use Pinterest other than as a design tool. That's what I feel like it is, because you're able to search for very specific things and get a lot of different artists come up, and photographers, and a whole range of different art things. So that's what I recommend you do. Find your favorite artists, make an inspiration folder around them and stuff, and this is going to give you that strong vocabulary that you're going to need as a character designer. So with all of those points out of the way, it's time to go on to our animation spotlight of the week. This is a new segment that I'm doing where I pick at random an animator or an artist that has submitted their animation test or their film to me, and then I showcase it to everyone. Fitra Mursandi has submitted 2 really nice clips to me. One of them is this one, which is a loop of a character he's created in the rain. and I really like the design, especially the kind of look you've gone for with the hatched shadows on the face and the overall structure with the face. He also submitted this kick animation to me. He's been experimenting with different kind of acrobatics and putting them into his fights choreography, so that's really nice to see. And I think when you put that clip into your animation, it's going to be nice and original, and it's going to be a fresh idea that people are going to enjoy. So well done for doing that, and I look forward to seeing more of your stuff in the future. If you would like to be featured on this channel, upload an animation to YouTube and send me the URL link in a YouTube message or in the comments. Any ability level can enter, and submissions are randomly selected, so give it a go and maybe you'll be featured in the next episode. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave us a comment if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time with another video on Friday. Goodbye.